the Joe Budden podcast. Okay. With me, I really enjoy listening to the Joe Budden podcast. And really, what came up recently was a very interesting conversation about Drake, Yachty, and an individual who did not want to release a clearance, who did not want to release a sample clearance for their song. Okay. And so I thought it was a really interesting conversation that I wanted to research, and I wanted to have the conversation with my audience and really just learn a little bit about sample clearances, at the same time give you my own experience. So I'll get straight to that so we can get that out of the way, right? So here's my experience with sample clearances. Okay, my experience with sample clearances came from way back in the day. Me and my buddy Brian James, I have two situations that we could talk about. The first situation, there's a Most Def song that we sampled, and in that song he says peace before everything, love before anything, right? He says all these things, and we took his voice and we put that into the hook of our song, right? And so that was one example. And to be honest with you, I don't know the details about it. I just know that that song was able to be created, and the sample must have been cleared. Everything was fine. Everything was good to go, right? I don't know if it really was just a few words that Most Def has said. We got the acapella for it somehow. We did some scratching and some mixing, and that song, right, went on, and we was able to stream that song and sell that song, and everything was cool with that. The second situation went a little different. The second situation, while we were trying to create tracks and stuff for this album, Freedom Summer, as well as for different mixtapes and things like that, we had some ideas for different kinds of songs, and the whole process about getting them clear, it just became a halt in our music production. So on my side of things, I was always MIDI based, and I was always like, I would really would rather just create everything from scratch. And so that's what I would try to bring. But, you know, sometimes that's not what the song needs, or that's not what the song requires, right? Sometimes you want just a little bit more, you know, sometimes you want just a little bit more. Maybe you want a certain line, or maybe you want a certain melody, or you want a certain part. You know, sampling at its core really can just bring out so much more life in your track. And so we had some songs that was like, well, you know, if we can or can't get these songs clear, what are we going to do? And so we just decided, we create a mixtape out of it. We're not going to make any money from it. We'll create the mixtape out of it. So that was what we ended up doing with many of those songs that had samples in them that we couldn't get cleared. It was like, oh, well, we wanted this to be an album, but because we couldn't get the songs cleared, it became a mixtape instead. Now, that's nothing new. That's nothing unique. That's what happens multiple times. And that is also what happened, or similarly what happened in this situation between Yachty, Drake, and the other individual. So they have a song that they have created. I believe it's called Super Soak. Yeah. So it's called Super Soak. They wanted to do the song. They asked the original person that they got the sample from if they can do the song. That individual said, no, we don't want you to, we're not going to clear the sample, essentially, right? And as a result of that, Yachty then sends the song to, I believe it's Kai. I believe the song is Kai Sanat. I believe he sends it to them, and then they go ahead and play it. And so this is the leak of the song, right? Goodness Gracious / Super Soak. This is what the song is called, right? So he leaks it to Kai Sanat. Yes, that's correct. All right. So problem with it is that it has a sample. The sample has not been cleared. And what is really interesting about the conversation is the reason why the individual did not want to release the sample. Okay. The reason why the individual didn't want to release the sample is really why it was interesting to me and why it kind of caught my attention. And I got some articles here we're going to pull up, and I want us to kind of see why, why things happen the way that it happened. Okay. Mr. Hotspot is the guy's name. And the original song, I believe, is called Goodness Gracious. And I was listening to the Joe Budden podcast, and essentially what they said was that the reason why he didn't want to clear the song, I'm going to have to change my camera, I guess, because my camera is like, no. The camera is like, no, buddy, this is not going to happen. And I'm trying my new little microphone situation. I just wanted to test this microphone. This is actually a pretty cheap microphone. It's from Proline. And this microphone, I thought I had everything ready to go. This microphone came with a stand, microphone, cable, for definitely under $100. And I wanted to test it to see how it sounds and everything like that. Oh, whoa. So hot take, new news. Mr. Hotspot agrees to clear sample for Drake and Lil Yachty as long as it is clean. Mr. Hotspot has agreed to clear the use of Goodness Gracious. What? Wow, right in the middle of this. Well, I'm glad I'm looking at this now, because my whole little conversation I was going to have about it was going to be totally different. Mr. Hotspot has agreed to clear the use of Goodness Gracious for Lil Yachty and Drake's viral hit Super Soak as long as they record a clean version of the song. Lil Yachty recently revealed that he leaked the song to Kai Cenat to play on stream after the sample wasn't initially cleared for use by Mr. Hotspot. Here's what some of the people are saying in the comment. The haters going to be mad about this one. If you disagree with this, just go ahead and delete your socials. Don't nobody want to hear it. While this influencer wanted just a cleaner version, Kai played it. No, probably. Both have kid-based watchers. Interesting. It's no way this song can be made clean. It would take away from the whole point of the song. Safe to say it won't be getting released. And that's the interesting thing about it, is that it's already released. Let's hear what he has to say about it. Okay, let's hear this guy.
And we sent it in to them. So hopefully they re-record the clean reference, and we come out with the clean Goodness Gracious all together. So it's a process, but it'll be good for both of their brands. Like that. And I'm blessed to work with children, so we just gotta make it clean for them. Like, we don't need no children getting whooped cause they said this or that. You understand? And if you look at the back side, it's the children who really running these views up. So if we make sure both verses clean, everybody coming clean, everybody gonna benefit for sure. It's a process, but we appreciate you being patient. We sent that in, they got it today, and them boys about to turn up. Like, we ain't trying to hold them back from nothing.
Much respect to bro.
Reference. And we sent it in to them, but we just need the morals correct. That's all. But we just need the morals.
I sent a song to Kai to leak.
Yes, I see this.
Right. We couldn't get the sample cleared. So I just let Kai play it.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
So that's not coming out?
No. But it's everywhere.
Yeah, but it's just a snippet.
No, I let him play the whole song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I tried to listen to it and it felt like the quality was...
I mean, maybe, but shit, it's still out there.
Yeah. But you make a song with someone else's music and then hope that they give you the rights?
What do you mean?
Like in this situation, you couldn't get the sample cleared.
Yeah, but this wasn't an artist. This was an Instagram social media influencer.
And they wouldn't clear a sample?
Yeah, he went down like a Christian.
Look how Andrew Schultz is just looking so surprised that they didn't want to clear it. This is the idea. This is okay. Let's let them keep going. It's very interesting.
Wow. Oh, that's okay. I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But then, can you share how much money was offered to the Instagram influencer that turned it down?
He just we didn't. I don't think we got into money. He was like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I sent a song.
Okay, so here's the song. They already sampled it, made the new song.
Hey.
The beat tight. I ain't gonna lie, beat tight. Beat definitely tight.
Watching the moves, playing it close. SOD.
Look at this one.
What's up?
Nobody has their own ideas anymore, huh? Shaking my head, no talent. Okay, so Kai going in, he liking it. All right, so here's the original. All right, so listen. So this is the rundown of how everything went. Please, camera, please just work with me. So this is a rundown of how everything went, right? This is a very old clip. I think the guy was more so on the comedy side, comedian side, but it doesn't matter. He created something and it's his. It belongs to him. It's his, right? No more or less than any song that Yachty has done or that Drake has done. They created it. It belongs to them. What business do I have taking their song, remixing it, making it hot or not? It still belongs to them. It's theirs, right? And if I make a song and then I send it to them and then it goes to their lawyers or it goes to their managers or it goes to their labels, they have the ability to say yes or no. They have the ability to say, yeah, we'll clear this sample, or no, we won't clear the sample. Now, the issue that comes out, with it is not so much whether or not the song should be cleared or not, but more so the issue is like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the entitlement behind it, like listening to, like Andrew Schultz like, what? Like he didn't want to release it? Like, what? Like, and Yachty is like, no, like, yeah, he wouldn't release it. And he just told me no, like we didn't even get into money. Like the entitlement behind it is so crazy. It's like, okay, you wanted something and you didn't. It's like, I don't know. I guess people just they don't like people telling them no, like, and so to then go out and then be like, all right, we're just going to play the song anyway. We're just going to leak it anyway. We're going to send it to the largest streamer out. He going to play it live. We just going to leak it anyway. And so part of the conversation that came out, like Joe Budden was talking about it, and part of the conversation came out was that he said he didn't want to leak it because he had found God and his new religious views felt like he didn't want to be attached to that kind of rhetoric, right? And even in some of these clips that they showing, the hashtag no more whoopings, he's saying he wants to do it for the kids, so
much respect to
kids could be able to sing it and they won't have no issues and stuff like that. Like all of that, it really don't matter. It really don't matter. It could be a yes or no answer, and then I could just say no. I don't have to really give you an answer. We're going to get into like the specifics about sample clearances though. So just so we can get the understanding, right? So just so we can get the understanding about why it matters in the first place. Like, especially if you make music. If you make music yourself, you want this to be on your side. You don't want this to be something that goes away, like, right? So it's really a question like, is sample clearances good or bad? Like, does it help people? Does it hurt people? With music, with hip hop being Like that is from the very beginning. Sampling was from the very beginning. The reason why we have these drum samples, break beats, the reason why we had instrumental versions or instrumental portions of the song so that rappers could rap over them is because the DJ was taking those dance break portions of the songs and mixing them on the turntables to create a beat, right? It wasn't like music was created to be rapped over. It was singers who were singing and or disco dance songs, right? And so because you have that at the beginning at its core, like the modern day producer just didn't exist back then. Fruity Loops didn't exist back then at the inception of hip hop. So you have this problem where in order for hip hop to grow and thrive, like sampling has to be allowed. It has to be available from the beginning, not from like later on down the line, but from the beginning, the very beginning parts of it, right? It's like, oh, how did you make that song? Well, it's actually an interpretation, or it's actually, you know, a remix from these other songs that we put all together, right? And so people still have an opportunity to say whether or not they want to take part in that, right? Like, shouldn't they still have a ability to say yes or no for whatever reason? I think that they should. And it's always interesting. It's always been the one thing that I've set in the middle of in my like career and in my music production. It's always been something that I set in the middle of, which is basically to say, am I a sample producer or am I a MIDI producer? That's really like it's just one of those. It's either this side or this side. Sample producer, MIDI producer. Like, are you going to write your own music or are you going to sample music? And the thing about it is, a lot of music is replayed. A lot of music is sampled. A lot of music goes through interpolation. A lot of music goes through just loops. Just loop the music, and then you got a rapper or a singer. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at this article from Red Bull. Interesting enough. And it says a history of sampling and a guide to getting them cleared. Okay. Let's just take a look at this real quick. Sampling is a musical development on a par with plugging in the first electric guitar. After the lawless days of the 80s, though, we found out how the process for clearing them has developed. Okay. If you ever enjoyed a top 100 record in the past 35 years or so, then you owe some thanks to a French composer who obviously messed with rudimentary sound tech while wearing ill-fitting suits. In the 1940s, Pierre Schaeffer was splicing together bits of recorded material, crafting what would become musique concrète. These absurd sound montages were, to most people, completely unlistenable, but his revolutionary technique formed the primitive origins of sampling. If you've been living under a rock, let us explain. Sampling is the art of taking one part of an existing track and, by looping it, turning it into a new one. But also, it's much more than that. A 5.2 second snippet from the Winstons' Amen Brother actually birthed a new genre when its Amen Break, performed by Gregory Coleman, became the bedrock of drum and bass. And taking the bass line from Chic's Good Times, the Sugar Hill Gang created a foundation-laying hip-hop record with Rapper's Delight. Okay, is this sounding familiar? We should be pretty familiar with both of these concepts if you are music producer, right? I mean, if you make beats, or if you should be familiar with these two songs. Amen Break, you know what I'm saying? Boom boom cat boom cat boom boom cat boom cat boom boom. Amen Break, lot of drum and bass inspired a whole new genre, right? All that type of stuff. Okay, so we got, those are some of the very open and concrete examples. Okay, let's keep going. Switch that. Here we go. The influence of sampling on modern music can't be understated, but the road towards releasing a record featuring one was and still can be rocky. Originating in its modern form in the 70s, sampling was an abstract concept to major labels who interpreted it as stealing. But for broke hip-hop producers attempting to emulate Grandmaster Flash, sampling was a quick, easy, and crucially cheap way to make beats. You're not making your own beats, but you're sampling them, right? Okay, cool. Still, labels demanded money for using their music, a hilariously unachievable notion to the average basement-dwelling producer in late 70s and early 80s in New York City. The inherent financial risk in this was also huge, and so those producers who could afford to pay chose to sample already established records to better guarantee a hit. It would be like when you hear something and it sounds familiar, you gravitate toward it, right? If this song is already a hit and then we make a beat out of it, you know, Ice Cube, Today Was a Good Day. Yeah, we know that. That's Isley Brothers. Ooh-ah, do-do-do, do-do-do-do, doom, 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 doom. You know what I'm saying? And that song, Footsteps, baby, In the Dark. Such a great song. Such great music composition, right? You hear it. It's familiar. Ice Cube comes on, just waking up in the morning, gotta thank God, and so on and so forth. So many examples. There's too many examples to name. But the idea is like, hey, that's already a hit. That already has sales. That already has people listening to that song. We can interpret that and make this into a rap song. And because it already has that thing that, you know, catches your attention, boom, you just go right along with it. Silk Sonic capturing a vibe that has already been established, right, from decades ago of music, not quite sampling, but interpolation, if you will, but just their own version of that music. The reason why their music has, you know, such good feelings is because it's built off of a foundation of another style of music that has already existed. And it can go all the way back to the beginning of time, okay? But the idea is like you hear something that's familiar and you want to just, you know, that gives you a ground, right? As opposed to something that's brand new or something that is from scratch, okay? So this makes sense why producers would, you know, they're using these songs that already exist. They're making the beats. Okay, cool. And of course, now you hear the first instance of money, because that's the big part. Money. What is happening with the money? Because in order for me to cut this record, it costs me money. And in order for me to cut this record, it costs me money. Okay. And in order for me to produce it and put it out into the world, it costs me money. Okay. And then when I start getting sales, I start making that money back. But the label, they want their advance back. And, you know, this costs the label money. It costs the artist money. Okay. It's a business. So if you're going to take what I've already put sweat equity into, then that means I should be getting some money back as well, right? So that's another aspect of it. Okay. Many hip hop producers took samples on a use first, worry later basis, and this wasn't without its problems. Beastie Boys are still paying for their 1989 homage to 70s funks, Paul's Boutique, a relative flop at the time. The album has become a blueprint for creative sampling, containing anything from 100 to 300 musical excerpts. In July 2019, the album's recording engineer Mario Claudado Jr. recalled how over $250,000 was spent on legal clearances, and that the list of samples on the album is so long, Paul's Boutique producers, the Dust Brothers, are still getting sued over it. On the flip side, the Winstons received very little for their use of their Amen Brother Break in thousands of tracks. Only a 2015 GoFundMe campaign ensured that the surviving member, Richard L. Spencer, got any money. Now think about that. Think about how many times you heard that Amen Break. Think about how many times you actually heard that break, right? Like in drum and bass, in house music, and whatever music you're thinking of. Think about how many times you actually heard that. And it's very unique and it's very specific. And the creator of that, it did not get paid from that. Like all of the sampling we're doing from that, nothing, right? Nothing. And that, to me, as a musician, is terrible, right? If there was more, if there was an opportunity for him to be like, don't clear that sample, like looking back on it, I don't know. Maybe it would go a little differently. Maybe it would go a little differently if somebody said, don't clear this amen break because that's my creation. Maybe it goes a little differently. I don't know. Let's keep reading. Okay, cool. When sampling was first used, very little was cleared. So people are going on this, instead of asking permission, you ask for forgiveness. And that's exactly what Yachty did. That's exactly what Yachty and Drake did. Rather than go for permission, we go for forgiveness, essentially. And then say, hey, but we want it, let's clear it, let's put it out. And for whatever reason, said, no, I don't want you to put it out. I don't want to clear it. I don't want to clear it. Head of copyright and business affairs for Ninja Tune and its publishing arm, Just Isn't Music. Make sure all samples used are done so legitimately. This resulted in many lawsuits, he adds. One of those lawsuits hit Biz Markie in 1991 when Warner Brothers pulled copies of his album I Need a Haircut after the single Alone Again unlawfully looped Gilbert O'Sullivan's Alone Again naturally, while Beastie Boys also found themselves in trouble pre-Paul's Boutique with the track Hold It Now, Hit It. In 1987, they were sued by Jimmy Castor over the phrase Yo Leroy, which was taken from Castor's 1977 song The Return of Leroy Part 1. Okay, arguably the biggest dispute. Hold on one second. Arguably the biggest dispute in hip hop history came when a 12-second audio clip pitted De La Soul against wholesome U.S. band The Turtles, transmitting live from Mars, a skit from De La Soul's Daisy Age masterpiece 3 Feet High and Rising, sampled The Turtles' 1969 song You Showed Me without securing proper clearance, resulting in a lawsuit that proved costly for De La Soul. Sampling is just a longer term for theft. Turtles member Howard Kalin told the Los Angeles Times, anybody who can honestly say sampling is some sort of creativity has never done anything creative. Now, where I do agree that you should get permission and that you are essentially taking someone's work, I don't necessarily agree that you're not creative if you do sampling. I'm not going to go that far. I don't think that is fair, because there is some creativity to sampling, even if it's in the situation of taking the loop of Footsteps in the Dark and just looping it over and over again to create Ice Cube's Today Was a Good Day. Even if it's the case of taking Juicy and flipping it, just making a nice little loop just continuously over and over again in order to create Juicy with Notorious B.I.G. It still is some creativity to find that pocket, to find that part of the track that, this would make a great hip hop beat. So even if it is as simple as that, but it could also be a little more complex than that, because with Juice WRLD's song, it was like the melody of it, for example, and it was a flip. It had different drums, had different 808, a different bass line, but it was the core of the track was that, right? It had that sample in it. So that's a problem, right? So it really doesn't matter. There does take some creativity for you to do sampling. Like I said, even if it's the very simplest version of sampling where you're literally just looping the thing over and over again, or if you take it and flip it and reverse it and pitch it down and chop it up and it doesn't matter how complex or uncomplex it is. There is some creativity there, right? And it's just unfortunate. Part of the conversation is, man, if they didn't make this music without the permission, then we wouldn't have this music, right? So, for example, if it was like, oh, we want to make this music, it's like, well, before we make the music, let's go ask them for the clearance. And then you go ask them for the clearance, and then they say no. So they say, oh, well, let's not make the music. Let's go do something else. That could be a sticky situation, right? Because that could end up being a situation where now you never make the music. And so we don't want to not make the music and not be creative, right? But that's why it comes down to, there's a legal process, there's a financial process, and there's a creative process. And it matters. It definitely matters. And you also, you want to be on the right side of it. You also don't want to just put the music out and then be like, all right, well, we made it, we put it out, and now you just get hit with a lawsuit. So it's like any money you did make from it is now gone, right? And we're going to get to another case involving Mr. Love, of course, talking about what happened with him and Sting. We know about these cases, right? We know about these cases. So it's just like, not a conversation. It's like, is it right? Is it wrong? Should we do it? Should we not do it? Where do we stand with it? And it gets deep. It gets deep. Okay, let's keep reading. Despite this, Shanks explains, the culture of not clearing samples seemed to prosper. Okay, while major labels were trying to make an example of hip hop producers, music execs were still trying to understand what sampling actually was. There were no legal guidelines on what constituted a sample. Even major publications couldn't decipher what was happening. In 1989, the Los Angeles Times asked if sampling was a creative tool or license to steal. So I'm assuming that this links to their article. That's crazy. An article from 1989. Guess what, guys? I wasn't even born yet. All right, let's keep going. The kids weren't put off, though, and producers were making records faster than lawyers could keep up as white label records became widespread on both sides of the Atlantic. These uncredited records used samples but contained zero information about its makers. As producers became untraceable, so they began influencing a philosophical shift. As the culture grew, people began to understand that sampling wasn't just stealing, it was reincarnating. All right, maybe not. All right, who knows? This led to a renaissance period from the mid-90s and into the 2000s, and records like Since I Left You by the Avalanches and DJ Shadow's introducing. In 2006 came Jay Dilla's Donuts from Stone's Throw Records, released in Dilla's 32nd birthday and 3 days before his death. Donuts is now rightfully recognized as a masterpiece. With Donuts, the idea wasn't to make a successful record. It was to show people that Dilla was still making music, recalls Egon. Speaking over the phone from Los Angeles as Stone's Throw Producers general manager from 2000 until 2011, Egon's job was to take Donuts from the studio to the shelves. And all this talk of donuts is making me want one. Excerpts from tracks by major artists such as the Jackson 5, Matronox, Frank Zappa, and 10cc all feature on Donuts, but this monumentally ambitious record was made possible through a series of handshake agreements with a couple of people, recalls Egon. We weren't working to clear samples at the time. We were working to get a record out in the most economical and efficient way possible. As the founder of reissue label Now Again Records, Egon's own musical catalog has been sampled by everyone from Christina Aguilera and Caribou to Beyonce, who found the beat for 2016's Freedom and a little-known psych rock track by Puerto Rican band Kaleidoscope. Sampling took time to reach these heights, says Egon. For years, it was stifled by the idea it lacked creativity. But Egon points to acts like Kanye West, Pharrell, Just Blaze, and DJ Premier, who elevated the art form to the upper echelons of pop. Since we're talking about Just Blaze, oh, you guys couldn't read that part. But since we're talking, I mean, listen, some really, really dope songs, bro, came out from these producers. I mean, do we even have to go down the list? Kanye West, Through the Wire? Like, come on, man. Freaking Just Blaze, Show Me What You Got, to Pump It Up with Joe Budden, all kind of stuff, right? And if it's not for their creativity and for their use of samples, those songs don't exist. Like, Through the Wire is probably a really, really good example because of the words that she's saying, right? like it just fit. It's just like this time and period of life where Kanye has gotten into an accident and his jaw is wired shut. And he hears this song and there's this sample flip opportunity, spit it through the wire. You know, it just fits. It just works. It's just one of those songs that's like begging you, please clear this sample. Please let this be a time where the sample gets cleared and it doesn't become a time where we have to go through all of these issues and problems. And it's not like it was a situation that was like right off of the bat. It was because everybody doesn't share your creative process. Everybody doesn't share how you feel about music. They're just listening to their music and saying, why are you doing this to my song? I love my song. I spend a lot of time hitting that note. I spent a lot of time doing that run. I spent a lot of time. The drummer had to redo that take like 7 times to make sure he was, you know, it's like a lot of energy and passion goes into it. And so there has to be some respect and some love going both sides, I think. I think that really matters, okay? Because if you take someone's song that they put their heart on, time, money, energy, it's hard to play guitar, y'all. It's hard to play piano unless you're like truly gifted. But to learn it, like I'm watching Eldre learn with Simon Savita. I just watched that video. Eldre's learning how to play piano. And by the way, Eldre, I know how to play a few keys. If you ever want, you know, some more help or, you know, you're interested in somebody else showing you some stuff on piano, you know what I'm saying? Hit me up. But just watching that whole process, it's like, yeah, it's not easy, right? It's like you got to actually do it. So I think there has to be some appreciation on the side of the artist and the producer that wants to sample this music where it's like, okay, listen, if you could do it, you would just do it. So you wouldn't have to sample it. Right. I think Just Blaze was somebody that showed that on one of the songs, it was a song that he did for Jay-Z. It was like this moment where it was like, oh, like what sample is that? And I've shared on my live stream before. I've had a similar situation, and it is a really great feeling. It really is. It's the greatest feeling I've ever felt. But somebody goes, oh, what sample is that? And you can tell them that's not a sample. I played every single thing on there. I hired a singer to come sing. She came and sang some oohs and some ahs for me to make a little choir. I played the guitar. I played the drums. I played the piano. I played the bass. I played the organ. I played the trumpet. Like I played all of the instruments. I put them all together. I ran them through a VST. I ran them through a plugin. I ran them through my tape recorder. I ran them over the vinyl player, whatever I needed to do, and I created that. So it's completely mine. I created it. And then I chopped it and flipped it and made it sound like a sample. That is a good feeling, right? Where it's like, oh, what sample is that? It's like, it's not a sample. I made it. So if you could do it, you would do it, right? So if you can't do it, and you need the sample, then you should show some respect to those musicians and those creators that first created the music for you to be able to sample them. And so that means like appreciating that if they don't want to release the song, then you should be okay with that. Or if they want to hit you upside the head for the rights to it or the money for it, like you might want to appreciate that. Or like if there's an opportunity for you to come together to establish something in order for the music to get done. I don't know. It just shouldn't just be like, this entitlement is crazy. I just don't think it should just be entitled. the conversation that was coming from the Joe Budden podcast was like, Ray Daniels, great person, love his podcast, loved him on Joe Budden. I thought he had a really great take. I thought he had a ton of great takes, but it was just so much entitlement that was coming from it, which was to say, once you create something and you put it out into the world, it's now like you've released it, and now it's up to the world to listen to it, like it, hate it, want to do something else with it, want to rap to it, sing to it, sample it. Like, it's just the entitlement behind it I didn't like and agree with. It's like, no, I made the song so you could listen to it and enjoy it. I didn't make the song so you could sample it, right? Even if you like it and you want to sample it, I didn't make it necessarily for that purpose. But if you do, if you I recently, and it's interesting, I recently like put out a instrumental track. And when this conversation came up, I was like, wow, yeah, like what if somebody took that track, they're listening to it on Spotify, or they're listening to it on YouTube, or they're listening to it and they go, yeah, I want to flip this. I want to sample this. I want to rap over this. I want to sing over this. And, they just took it and then was like, oh, Chris, hey, I know that was your track. Can you release it? Like, it would be under my discretion to say yes or no, or to be like, hey, I don't want to be involved with your song about, whatever you're rapping about or whatever you're singing about. Like, that's not my life. Like, my everyday 24/7 life, if it does not reflect what you want to rap about, I'm going to have an issue with that. So it's so interesting how money is not an issue. It's like, I want to be able to have some integrity. I want to be able to have some integrity with this thing. Let me finish reading this before I get all off topic. Hip hop has changed a lot, and we got to a point where samples in mainstream hip hop are an acceptable proposition again. From the sample producers to the managers, lawyers, and publishers, today people realize there's a good distance in this for everyone, provided it's easy and ethical for everybody. What Egon is getting at is money. If everyone is getting paid, then everyone is, look at this word, happy. But for those without Beyonce's means, how does a producer navigate the minefield of licensing a sample and releasing a record? Research begins, Shanks, describing the first of his four-part process to clearing a sample. First, here's step one. Find out who owns the rights to the sample you're using. Then it's contact. 2, contact. Once you found the owners, get in touch with them. It can take time to get to a specific person, but if you find a licensing contact, that should be a great start. 3, from there, you negotiate. Once you've confirmed the owners of the sample, make sure to get in writing that they control all the rights you need and that they can license such rights to you. Then you need to discuss a deal. Step 4, discuss a deal. Finally, you can release your track. Okay? Sounds simple. Shanks makes it sound easy. That's exactly what I was just thinking. Shanks makes it sound easy. Let me fix this real quick. Shanks makes it sound easy, but licensing remains a complex and sometimes expensive endeavor. With that said, could a record like Paul's Boutique or Donuts be made today? Egon points to the recent Freddie Gibbs and Madlib collaborative album, Bandana, released on Egon's co-partnered label, Madlib Invasion, Keep Cool, and RCA. From the transcendental elevator jazz of Walt Barr's Free Spirit to the raga call out source from Super Beagle's Dust a Sound Boy, dozens of samples appear in Bandana. With so many sonic elements, Egon, who has still approving rights until the week of release, soon took 7 or 8 months to finalize clearances at a licensing cost of, and this is a tentative estimate, $100,000. Bandana is not the Paul's Boutique of 2019, he says, but it is an example of how in 2019 you can create an album like Paul's Boutique. If you have everything lined up and you don't take a passive approach, you can go out and figure it out. I look at copyright as something that's not to be jealously protected, but rather to be shared, enjoyed, and distributed among people who have a reason to find new opportunities for it, Egon adds. That's everything. That's fostering the creation of art. So I look at this as a long-term gain. What is going to incentivize people to want to do this further down the line? Today, sampling has morphed into a different entity. In the last decade, producers have been using samples in more creative ways, adding to the original track instead of being the basis of it. With the world's discography available on YouTube, sampling has become a looser term. Kanye West sourcing audio from a viral video of a child preacher for Life of Pablo's opening track, Ultralight Beam. Since then, he was reportedly sued by the toddler's parents for illegal use of the recording, but the sentiment remains. Now, come on, y'all. Whew, I got chills even just thinking about that song. We are a ultralight beam. We on a ultralight beam. I don't want to sing too much of it. Somebody might come after me. Teebs, the brain feeder sign, alias. Man, it's a whole lot of words and letters. Whatever that M name is. Sampling is almost a cathartic exercise. Okay, don't get too crazy, y'all. A sample has to meet a criteria. This changes depending if it's something I want to release, what mood I'm in, and what I want to hear in my house, he says. I tend to let the sounds I record loop all day and see how, with time, the sounds make me feel. Some could be great at first, but then you could begin to fill out the problems with them and decide if you continue to work with it or not. It's like building a relationship. On his debut album, Ardor, Teebs stretched, warped, and distorted old material into vast soundscapes that resonate in blissful frequencies. Anika, Teebs' latest album, steers away from those origins. The sparse samples he used on it are like a secondary instrument, a little like faint backing vocals that give way to his collaborators, including Panda Bear and Sudan Archives. I tried my hand at using some instruments I always found interesting. I wanted to get closer to the East African music I heard growing up and make a record that I could see my daughter listening to in 10 years' time. But still, Nika still owes its experience to Mandawa's early years chopping and looping snippets of old records in his bedroom, something that started as a happy accident. I remember opening up music software, FL Studio, and I accidentally dragged a whole album from a rapper named Circus into the program. He recalls my computer froze for a day, but when I returned, the entire album was chopped into split-second sound bites. All of a sudden, I had sounds I'd never heard before, and in those strange, unorganized chops, there was magic that was once unnoticed. Perhaps that's why sampling conjures new ideas, ones that inspire French experimentalists and bedroom producers alike. Sampling is a form of expression that can go as deep as your imagination can carry you. So that is the article from Red Bull, and it really does get into, the situation of sampling and sample clearance. And then when you really think about it and you actually really get serious with it, you ask yourself, can I afford to even partake in the process of clearing a sample? Can I even afford to partake in those steps that was just given? The steps of, go through this, contact the person. Can I actually get to the contact the person, work out a deal, get their permission, come up with it's not like two friends talking at a coffee shop, right? Like, talk to my lawyer. My lawyer will give you the details. My lawyer will talk to your lawyer. That's how we get to the album and the clearances costing over $100,000 as just an estimate of how much it possibly could cost to get those samples cleared. Now that's a record label that's working with, that individual, right? But even before that, the other one said $250,000 is what it cost in lawyer fees and negotiations. And so it's not something for the everyday rapper, though everyday rappers tend to do this a lot. Everyday producers, I should say, tend to do this a lot. We tend to sample music and that we have no business sampling and probably won't ever get cleared. And it just becomes a situation, should it exist at all? If we were in a world where it didn't exist at all. So if we're in the A world where anyone could sample and remix and rechop any song that they wanted and they didn't need to get any clearance. They don't need to get clearance. They already got it from the minute that they make the song. It's theirs. They don't need to get clearance. What does that look like? What does it mean? It means on the creative side, producers and rappers can be as creative as they want to be. They can create the music. They can come up with the ideas. They can say, man, I have an idea for this song. And they're not limited by, oh, but could we actually get that cleared, right? They're not limited by that. So that's great. And then on the side of the person that they're sampling, there is no process for them to get permission or be cleared by them. So what tends to happen is, whether they like it or not, their song can now be used by somebody else in a way that they might not agree to first, or in a way that they completely, goes around and against their thoughts, their views, their attitudes, their feelings about music and the music that they created. Hey, I made this song for my dad who was struggling with cancer, and this was very deep and important for me. And I made this song. It was cathartic to me to make this song. And I put it out in the world because I knew that other people might be dealing with this same similar issue. And then you took the song and made Juvenile back that thing up to it. Like, I don't think that's what happened with Juvenile's back that thing up, but I'm just giving it an example. It's like you have no recompense about that situation. You have nothing. Wants to create a song. When an artist or producer wants to sample a song, they have to get permission from the person that they're sampling it from. And if they don't get permission, then they cannot make that song. And if they decide to put the song out, there is laws in place that can get that song pulled down. I feel bad for Mr. Hotspot and his situation, because it's almost like he's being bullied into letting them use the song, use the sample, even though he's saying no. Even if he was saying no as a negotiation tactic, even if he was saying it in that situation, it still is, it's my creation. I should be able to have some kind of say so in the matter. Like, nobody called me when you got this idea. You could have very easily called me when you had this idea to make this song. So I think in the world that we exist in now, there are things in place to shield you. You can have a lawyer. You can do a cease and desist. You can get it pulled down. You could get Kai Cenat's YouTube a copyright strike if he continues to play the music that belongs to you, that has a sample that belongs to you, right? There is options. There's things that you could do because the process exists. So do we like sample clearances? No. Like I said, I ran into the same situation. They're not going to clear that. Of course they're not going to clear that sample. All right. We'll put it on a mixtape. We won't make any money from it. We'll put it on a mixtape. That way these bars still get out in the world. You know what I'm saying? because my buddy was Brian James, shout out to Brian James, writing dope lyrics, writing dope songs to these beats and to these, songs we were putting together, but the sample just wasn't getting cleared. We're not clearing that. We know it's not going to get cleared. We just put it on a mixtape. It's just for us to flex, one, our production skills, and two, our lyricism skills. But it will be well within that person's right if they heard it and was like, get these guys off my music, Or you make some money, I make some money, we all are happy, right? Because that's the other option that the right holder has. I hold the rights, the copyright to this song that you want to sample. I will license it to you. I will allow you to sample it for this fee, for this percentage, for this royalty, in perpetuity, forever and ever. And that's cool. But sometimes it doesn't come down to just money, right? Sometimes it doesn't come down to just what money can be made from it. Sometimes it comes down to whether or not you agree with what is being made. Sometimes it comes down to whether or not you wanted your music to be felt and heard that way. And somebody would be saying, man, he should be so lucky to have Yachty and Drake, sample him, or what, like he would be so lucky as to have that happen. But I mean, anybody that just feels like you should just be able to do whatever you want to do and just take advantage of somebody's music, like that's not cool. That's not a good feeling. Music, art, videos, whatever it is, that's not good. It's not a good feeling. And it's funny too, because we're in a situation where, like with Instagram and YouTube, they have this thing like remix, like you could remix something, and the video was on Instagram. They could have remixed it. They could have did the little Instagram Reels thing and be like, oh, look, guys, here's the original video. Here's our little remix. There are laws, and there are, like, when you post something on Instagram, you post something on YouTube, you essentially give them the right to be able to allow their users to remix and reinterpolate, and you got to read those terms of conditions. And it just, it's really an interesting conversation, because you find yourself in a crossroad between creativity and law. You find yourself at the crossroad between creativity and business, where you say, for the loss or the lack of business, I wasn't able to be creative. For the lack of being creative, I didn't have my business in order. And either one of them is unacceptable. It's not acceptable for you to be as creative as you possibly could be, but not have your business in order, and then people just take advantage of you. And it's also not okay for it to be like, well, my business is locked tight and I spent all my money on lawyers and copyrights and not on plugins or equipment or gear, or like, that's not cool either. So it's just whack how music can really come down to these two intersections. And a lot of times I'm sure that it is because I am a musician and I love music. We would rather it just be, let us just be creative. Let us just make the thing, and then we all be fair to each other. Be fair to each other, and the business just works itself out. Right? The business just works itself out. But 9 times out of 10, and especially that 10 out of 10, it doesn't work that way. Somebody gets the benefit and someone does not. Most of the time, it is not that everybody is happy in this situation. Most of the time, There's somebody that's happy and they got their way, and then there's somebody else that's saying, wow, if I had as much money as you, if I had as much friends as you, if I had the lawyer you had, I would not have been taken advantage of. I guess instead of me releasing these videos, instead of me releasing this music, instead of me releasing these ideas, these pictures, instead of me releasing these things, I'll keep them to myself and I won't share them with anybody in the world. So that is the situation that happened with them. And it's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. It's one of the reasons why me, myself, I never was really into it. I never was really into it. I feel like if somebody came and was like, Chris, like I really would like to hear how you would flip this. Like if an artist came to me and was like, hey Chris, I know that you be like making beats and stuff. I really want to like hear how you would flip this. Sample my song, let's make a new song. You sample my song, we'll make a new song. That might be different. That might be okay. But I don't know. Just from the beginning, I just always had like a weird vibe, a weird feeling about it. And up until very recently, it was probably like, oh, you feel that way about it because you can't do it. Like, oh, you can't do it. Like, oh, you can't sample real good. You can't sample. So that's why you don't like it. That's why you don't do it, because you can't sample. And then it just became, nah, that's not the case, because I can make my own sample and I can sample it. So it's not that. It's just, I don't know, just more interested in having something that is purely and 100% creatively my own. Something that is my own. And then the other part about it too, like even with this case about like Sting and Diddy, like they be throwing these words and these numbers around and it don't really matter. They talking that big money talk that many of us not gonna see anyway. Like $5,000 a day is what they're saying for that unclear song sample. Essentially what it's saying is like the song became so, well, I don't know what they're exactly saying, why it's $5,000 a day. But can you just even imagine that? Can you even imagine paying $5,000 a day? Can you even imagine it? $5,000 a day? $5,000 a day is $150,000 a month. $150,000 a month. For 10 months, that's $1.5 million. So in a year, almost 2 million, something like 1.6 million in a year that you're paying out for one song. Who could really fathom that? We can't really fathom that. So it's like, it's record label talk. It's executive talk. It's like, it's way up there. It's way up there. Way, way, way up there. It's way up there. It's way up there. For fun, I asked ChatGPT how to clear a sample. Let's see what ChatGPT. For fun, I asked how to get a sample cleared in ChatGPT. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Clearing a sample such as a music sample involves, hold on real quick, where's this thing at? Involves a few key steps. Man, I don't know why I can't read. Here we go. Clearing it is because it's so small. Okay, let's zoom in a little. Here we go. Clearing a sample such as a music sample for use in a project involves a few key steps. Identify the rights holders. Determine who owns the rights to the sample. This typically includes the original artist, record label, and possibly other parties like publishers. contact the rights holders, reach out to the relevant parties to request permission. This can be done through their management teams, record labels, or directly if you have contact information. Be clear about how you intend to use the sample, including the nature of the project, the distribution plans, and any potential commercial use. Negotiate terms. If the rights holders agree, you'll need to negotiate the terms of the clearance. This might involve discussing fees, royalties, and specific usage rights. Ensure that you get everything in writing to avoid any misunderstandings. Get written permission. Once terms are agreed upon, make sure you have a formal agreement or contract in place. This document should outline the permissions granted, any fees or royalties, and any other relevant details. Document the process. Keep detailed records of all communications, agreements, and payments related to the sample clearance. This documentation can be crucial in case of any disputes or legal issues in the future. Follow legal advice. If you're unsure about any part of the process, it might be wise to consult with an entertainment lawyer who specializes in intellectual property to ensure everything is handled correctly. By following these steps, you can help ensure that you have the proper rights to use the sample legally and avoid potential legal issues. That's what ChatGPT had to say about it. Thank you, ChatGPT. So it kind of sounds like what the article was saying about getting a sample clear. Kind of the same jargon, same information. Reach out to the artist or reach out to the copyright holder. Things got to get put in writing. In layman's term, you got to have a lawyer. I don't know if you know how to write a contract or if you know how to write a licensing agreement or a copyright agreement. I know you don't think that the artist is going to do it for you. Like they're going to, oh yeah, for sure, you can use it. And here's this copyright license agreement form. Here, I just spent all night typing it up. Like, no, they're not going to do that. They're going to call the lawyer. They're going to call the label. The label's going to take care of it. That's how the money gets involved. Oh, I don't know how long it's going to take me to write it. It might take me a day or two. My hourly fee is $1,500. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many days it's going to take me to actually get this thing done and finished and everything like that. Like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So that's the interesting part. One other thing that Joe Budden was saying specifically in their show, what they were saying was that after so many years, things become public domain. Things become, it's like that Amen break. Not one person can own the copyright to it. It's been used so many times. It's been out in the world so many times. It's been used so many times that doesn't have it doesn't have a royalty attached to it. It doesn't have an ownership attached to it. So it's just like, hey, Creative Commons. It's like everybody can use it. It's like it's free range, free domain for everybody to use. And there are a lot of different things that are like that, right? There are a lot of different things that are like that. One shots, not necessarily. One shots are not necessarily things that you need to get a clearance for. And most drum kits or drum packs, Native Instruments, Splice, they'll tell you things like these are royalty-free sounds. So, you know, these are royalty-free sounds. Here's the interesting thing about it. In order to create a hi-hat sound, you got to have somebody to engineer it, right? You got to have somebody to create it. And so that either means you have a drum kit and you have a microphone and they record that hi-hat, or you have a program that when you use the program, you can use the program to create that kick, snare, hi-hat, clap, whatever it is, right? And so someone has to create it. It doesn't exist from nowhere, but it's not exactly the same. Okay. A really good conversation. If you guys haven't heard it, go check it out. It's from episode 747, Can You Not, of the Joe Budden podcast. They talk about this specifically, this Yachty and Mr. Hotspot and Drake. They talk about this situation and about what they should or should not do. Like should Yachty have leaked it? You know, like, oh, we're not gonna put it out for essentially for sale. We're not gonna make any money from it, so we could just release it this way. Like, you know, I don't know. You just have to ask yourself how you would feel about your music. I've seen this guy before. I've seen this guy. Definitely didn't know his name, but I've seen this guy before, and yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I think it's more than wanting a cleaner version of it as well, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it actually comes out. An interesting conversation. Shout out to people that really do this too, by the way. Shout out to people that really be like reviewing and like listening to these stories. Like, y'all make this look easy, man. Y'all make this look y'all make this look real easy. Like, I imagine somebody like just different people, how they just be talking about these different things happening in the news and happening in life. Y'all make it look real easy, bro. Make it look real good. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? You guys let me know. What are your thoughts? Let me see. What are your thoughts on this situation between Mr. Hotspot, Lil Yachty, and Drake? It was so funny too. Just out as I was about to go live, I see this post. Just as I'm about to go live, I see this post, and it's like, oh, look at that. They already resolved it. Wow. What do you know? What do you know?